Welcome back to our spring mini series. We are working on this gorgeous Hungarian folk art. It's an applique piece using 5.5-inch squares. If you're just joining us, I am Allison from QuiltNCode, and all our pattern pieces can be found on our website at QuiltNCode.com. So be sure to follow us, like, subscribe, and all that other stuff. So today we're going to be putting this part together and adding our first border. So let's get sewing. I have started by laying all of the quilt pieces out now that they're all appliqued and ready to go. I am going to actually stitch them together in rows like this because I know that this row in particular is going to be difficult to get my stems together. So I am going to start by lining up these stems, and I'm actually going to pin on either side of the stem so that I can make sure I get that right. So I'm going to start with this row. This row is the one that makes me most nervous, and then I'll go on to the other rows. So I'm also going to do them in twos. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this one. That way I can do a bit of chain piecing while I go. So I am going to pin right here on either side of that stem. And then I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch with this row. Now all my stems line up. It did take this one 2 or 3 tries to get there, but this is the hardest row, so the rest of this is going to go together really easily. I'm going to do the same thing, do them in twos, and just work my way out. Now that I've gotten the rows all stitched, I want to make sure that my seams are going in opposite directions. So I've placed them up here. I have my iron, and I'm going to do some of them that direction and some of them that direction. This is such a nice small quilt that I don't have to worry about remembering which way I'm ironing. I can stick it all up here at the same time. So this row is going to go this way. And then this row is going to go this way. And I'm going to repeat that for all the rows so that when I go to put these together, they're going to nest nicely before I stitch them. When I'm putting my columns together, I go ahead and nest up those seams. So I have one seam allowance that's going one way and one seam allowance that's going the other, so that those joints butt up right against each other. And then I take a pin and I do it diagonally so that it'll cover both of them. And then I can go ahead and stitch. I am completely pieced now. If I did it right, then my quilt is 25 3/4 square. But I'm going to go ahead and measure from the center before I cut any borders. And when I do this, I fold it in half and I measure from the top to the bottom. Okay, so I am correct because I like to put my sides on first, and I did measure 25 3/4. So I have my borders and I cut the sides first, and then for any border that I do, I like to pin them really well because that's what gives me that square quilt. And so I am going to start by pinning my sides, my top and my bottom here, and then I'm going to pin in the middle, and since this is nice and small, I can just do 2 more pins right here, and that just makes sure that everything's going to stay in place. And then I also have another one that I can go ahead and do on this side, and I do this for all my quilts. I just sort of fold them up nice and neat and do 2 at a time. So iron that piece out right there. Okay, and so I can do this, that way I can get both sides done at the same time. And I'm going to do the same thing. I pin on the ends. And then pin it in the center, and that way, and I make it work. If I have something, you know, if one side's a little smaller than the other, then I make that sucker work so that it ends up being that 25 3/4 or whatever measurement it is. I do this for every border on every quilt, because then my quilt will not grow. All right, now I'm going to stitch. Now you see how easy it is to applique one 5.5-inch square at a time. And so now that we've put everything together and put these 4 borders on, it is time to move on to the last borders. I hope you are enjoying this series. Please like, subscribe, comment, and get to know us here at QuiltNCode. We'll see you soon.